Good evening from New York. I'm Lawrence O'Donnell. Today, President Obama defended his tax cut compromise with Republicans during a press conference that compared Republican lawmakers to hostage takers and his critics on the left to sanctimonious purists who just want to prove how tough they can be.
This notion that somehow we are willing to compromise too much reminds me of the debate that we had during health care. This is the public option debate all over again. So I pass a signature piece of legislation where we finally get health care for all Americans, something that Democrats had been fighting for 100 years. But because there was a provision in there that they didn't get that would have affected maybe a couple of million people, even though we got health insurance for 30 million people and the potential for lower premiums for 100 million people, that somehow that was a sign of weakness and compromise. Now, if that's the standard by which we are measuring success or core principles, then let's face it, we will never get anything done. People will have the satisfaction of having a purist position and no victories for the American people. That can't be the measure of what it means to be a Democrat.
The White House plans to dispatch Vice President Joe Biden to the House Democratic Caucus tomorrow to try to push back against what House Speaker Nancy Pelosi calls a, quote, certain amount of unease. She said the Republican plan failed the tests of job creation and deficit reduction, and then offered a defense of President Obama's part of the deal.
The president's part of the proposal, all of it is a stimulus to the economy. It creates jobs. It's for the tax cuts for the middle class. 156 million Americans are affected by it in a positive way. Again, it creates jobs and injects demand into the economy to create growth, and that growth will help reduce the deficit.
Joining me now are Jane Hampshire, founder of FireDogLake.com, Adam Green, founder of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, Ezra Klein of the Washington Post, and Roger Hodge, author of The Mendacity of Hope. Adam Green, you're the returning champion here, having appeared on the show, as we say, more times than anyone other than myself. That what Nancy Pelosi just had to say sounded pretty reasonable, didn't it?
Yeah, there's lots of reasonable stuff being said on the left. Look, our only point is you don't compromise on a fight you can win. You don't compromise without a fight. And what we've seen recently is that only 26% of Americans support the Republican position. A majority of Republican voters, independent voters, and Democratic voters support our position. And my basic question is this. Is there a single Republican in Congress right now who has felt any political pain or pressure back home in the last month since the election as a result of being on the wrong side of this issue? And if the answer is no, that means the president didn't fight and is asking his base to give up without a fight.
Adam, you're in the business of causing pain for politicians. You made life very painful for some Democrats this year, including Blanche Lincoln, helping with a primary challenge. Have you and your organization made life painful or difficult for any Republican?
I am proud to report, Lawrence, that ours is the only organization right now that has ads up taking on Olympia Snowe in Maine, Scott Brown in Massachusetts, John Boehner in Ohio, and Eric Cantor in Virginia. The DNC doesn't, the DCCC doesn't, the DSCC doesn't. None of the Democratic Party institutions do. We are the only ones, and I hope that more join our cause. But we also have to hold this president accountable to his promises and ask him to actually fight before he gives up.
Okay, I just want to get something straight from everyone tonight, starting with you, Adam, strategically, on where we stand now. Are you an advocate of having the president stand firm on the original position and, if necessary, allowing the tax rates to expire on December 31st and allowing the Clinton tax rates to then resume on January 1st, creating a tax increase for every American income taxpayer?
Listen, Republicans just showed that they are willing to kill their own...
we got to be quick on this. I just want to know
the answer is yes. As a negotiation posture, you have to be willing to go into next year.
Not a negotiation posture. I mean, would you be actually willing to do it? Some people are saying that's what you should do. There are people in this network saying we should be negotiating this tax bill in February and in March after some taxpayers, all taxpayers, have been forced to pay higher taxes so that we can then force and shame the Republicans into doing the right thing, and that strategy would actually work. It's worth it to put people through the pain of paying more taxes in January, February, March, maybe, in order to get a deal. Are you someone who believes the deal has to be concluded, if there's going to be one, by December 31st, or it's okay to negotiate this into the next year?
This is not a tough question to me. It is okay to negotiate it, absolutely.
Okay,
we have
great.
to hold the Republicans accountable.
Jane Hampshire, just start with that strategic question of should there be a conclusion to this by December 31st, or should Democrats be willing to allow the Democratic tax rates, the Clinton tax rates, to be imposed by law as they currently would be on January 1st?
Well, the question presumes that there is a cohesive position that the Democrats have. And unfortunately, because of the way that the president did this, there is no cohesive position in the Senate. They didn't do, Lawrence, you know what procedure is and how these things are handled in the Senate. You brief the leadership, and then you bring in key senators, and you tell them what the deal is. And then 10 or 20 of them get together and they release a letter saying we support this when it comes out. They didn't tell anybody anything. They sent them all a sheet with a bunch of bullet points. The senators are getting calls going, what do you think about this? They go, we don't know anything about it. We haven't been briefed. They haven't seen the legislation yet. There is no legislation yet. And the president calls a press conference and it's the first thing anybody hears about it. They're on fire up there. Joe Biden went up today and he got his clock cleaned by the Progressive Caucus of the Senate. There is no unity. Nobody can even figure out what's going on.
Well, the plan is very simple. It's out there. It's very clear. I guarantee you that the chairman of the Finance Committee, Max Baucus, was involved and his staff was involved in putting it together. But I want to get to this strategic question of what is there to do now. There are people advocating that this president abandon this agreement and allow the Clinton tax rates, an increase for every taxpayer in America, to go into effect on January 1st. And I just want to know strategically, going forward from here, Jane, do you think that is a strategic option for Democrats, that they should be willing to do it?
I, as you and Adam know, was an advocate of negotiating the best deal that you could and not holding hostage, not allowing them to take hostages. But the 2 million people who are unemployed, the 99ers, they didn't get help in this deal. And the president has been going on, as have the Republicans, about the need to close the deficit. And they just decided to go on a spending spree together. After having gone on and on about the deficit for so long, you sound incoherent for doing this. You have no philosophy. This is not the way things get done. I have to say, I agree with Adam. No. Veto it. Veto it. He's the president. John Boehner said if that was all he had the option to vote for was tax cuts, veto it.
So you're now in favor of, you're moving off your position of last week where you wrote a piece about how they should strike the best deal they can now with Republicans, and you're now willing to veto this and let taxes increase on January 1st?
There were the centrist Democrats on the Hill wanted the Chuck Schumer $1 million deal. Obama moved in and killed that deal and negotiating a deal that was worse than what the conservatives want. That is not a position that has anything that's defensible about it. He went straight to the Republicans and said, let me give you everything you want.
The truth is the Senate voted on the Schumer $1 million deal before the president made his deal, and the Senate failed to pass it. They got 53 votes. They needed 60. They didn't. 5 Democrats, including Russ Feingold, voted against this $1 million thing.
So you think that they're going to vote for this and not that?
This is going to pass, absolutely, because it's going to have Republican votes, and it's going to have most Democratic votes, absolutely. There'll be very few Democratic votes against this. Roger Hodge, I just want to get you on this strategically quickly. Do you think the president should hold fast and allow tax rates to increase on January 1st? And the reason I'm asking this is that the reason the president reached this agreement now is because he will not, and he made this very clear today, one of his principles is he will not allow a tax increase on every income taxpayer in this country on January 1st. He won't allow it. That's one of his strategic principles in doing this. Roger, do you think that's a mistake? Do you think he should be willing to allow it?
I think you're dignifying this position with the word principle. I don't believe that Barack Obama has any principles at all. And I think that this particular controversy is a demonstration of the fact that he has no principles. Of course he should fight. Of course he should be willing to do what is necessary.
Should he be willing to let the rates increase on January 1st?
Of course he should.
Okay, Ezra Klein.
Of course.
Go ahead. Thank you for the quick answer, Roger. Ezra Klein, should he be willing to allow the rates to increase on January 1st?
Given the deal that's on the table, no.
Thank you, sir. That's an economical answer. And let me just say, as the only one here who has written tax law, if you ever want to sit down and try to write a tax law retroactively, which is what you would have to do, if you allow this thing to the Clinton rates to be restored on January 1st, and you make some sort of deal or pass some sort of bill in February or March, then you're going to have to do a retroactive decrease of the rates going back to January 1st. That is virtually unwritable and not administratable. And President Obama was not, as he said, not willing to risk all the taxpayers below the top tax bracket suffering that problem. All right, we're going to be going on with this. This is a special extended discussion of this controversy tonight. I am holding to the position, as I think you can now tell very clearly, I believe the president got the very best deal he could possibly get under these circumstances, and there was no other option, especially in January when Republicans take over the House of Representatives and take over complete technical control of tax writing legislation. Everybody, please stand by. We're going to continue our conversation. The progressive community disagreeing about the Obama deal after a short break. Thanks. Stay with us.